Hi, I'm James Ezimoha. Welcome to Africa News, where we'll bring you the latest updates from across the African continent. Here are your headlines. Nigeria's National Commission for Museums and Monuments to oversee the return and preservation of the Benin bronzes. DR Congo halts exports of cobalt due to oversupply and low prices. Body of a British businessman declared missing found in Kenya. Finance ministers and central bank chiefs from the G20 nations gathered in South Africa on Wednesday for a two-day meeting marked by the absence of the US and several other high-profile countries. Analysts say the absence underscores the declining relevance of the body at a time when global cooperation is faltering. Despite the absence and resistance from wealthier countries, host President Cyril Ramaphosa says there is a need for increased climate finance and reforms to benefit poorer nations.
We're not moving quickly enough and even boldly enough to address the challenges that the world is facing. We must collectively target a step change in our efforts to improve the lives of the peoples of the world, but more importantly, to protect future generations. As the G20, we need deliberate and coordinated efforts to focus on inclusive growth based on responsive trade and investment to grow the incomes of poor nations and the poorest in society. And this we should do in our own selfish interests.
South Africa's central bank governor warns that global trade tensions and domestic risks could disrupt the country's economic progress. Speaking on the sidelines of a G20 finance meeting in Cape Town, the governor said that trade and tax policies pose inflation risks.
Global trade tensions and a potential value-added tax hike in South Africa could derail 2 years of slowing inflation. That's according to Central Bank Governor Leseja Kyanyango, who says that tariffs imposed by major economies could lead to retaliatory measures affecting South Africa's exports and economic stability. He made the comments on the sidelines of a meeting of G20 finance officials in Cape Town.
There are all sorts of difficulties, and you can't always anticipate them. But one thing that is looming large had been the uncertainty, the elevated uncertainty that had been created by some of the trade measures that are taken by some of the major economies. When you impose tariffs, you expect that the other countries will respond, whether through tariffs or through some other measures. What is in no doubt is that an increase in tariff does impose a cost on the consumers of the country that is imposing tariffs. If country A imposes tariffs and it says that they are doing that for whatever reason, the consumers will pay for it with higher prices. As a country, we might do the same. That would mean that South African consumers will pay with higher prices. And when I said they become a shock, which is, I don't mean that I am personally shocked. I mean the economy is shocked.
South Africa's G20 presidency has been overshadowed by prospects of a global trade war since US President Donald Trump's return to the White House last month. His warning comes as US and South Africa face growing trade tensions. Analysts say further rate cuts may be paused as the central bank assesses emerging economic risks.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has temporarily halted cobalt exports due to oversupply and low prices. Officials say a 4-month ban aims to stabilize the market. However, there's no ban on production, which is now expected to be stockpiled until permission to export it again. The country is the world's largest producer of the mineral, used in electric vehicles and phone batteries. Looted World Food Program and USAID nutritional supplements are now being sold on the streets of Bukavu. raising concerns about health risks. The looting follows the recent advance of the M23 group into eastern Congo's second-largest city, exacerbating an already dire humanitarian situation.
The streets of Bukavu are flooded with packets of ready-to-use therapeutic food, looted from aid warehouses during the takeover by M23 rebels. According to the UN, looters made off with 7,000 tons of humanitarian food supplies, making access to food increasingly difficult. Meantime, locals selling these looted supplements say the sales have helped support their families.
I just bought these plum peanut supplements in bulk and I'm selling them for 500 FC each. They're almost gone. Now I can buy food for my children, flour and small fish. I'm so happy. Yesterday I left early in the morning, found merchandise, sold it all, and could buy small fish and flour.
However, health experts warn that the indiscriminate sale of these supplements could lead to dangerous health complications, as the products were meant for use in medical settings.
After the looting of World Food Programme warehouses, people rushed to get these products. Unfortunately, they're being sold indiscriminately, exposing consumers to complications. It's important to show that looting warehouses containing therapeutic, ready-to-use foods, and supplementary, ready-to-use foods is very harmful because these foods are meant for our health centres and hospitals treating malnutrition.
In a statement, the WFP said that it condemns the pillage of its warehouses in Bukavu in South Kivu. According to officials, the food supplies kept there were meant to provide vital support to the most vulnerable families who now face a growing humanitarian crisis. The development came as M23 fighters made continuing gains in eastern DRC after taking control of Goma, capital of North Kivu province, at the end of January.
Nigeria's National Commission for Museums and Monuments will oversee the return and preservation of the Benin bronzes looted by British forces in 1897. The commission says it now has the Oba of Benin's full backing to display and conserve the historic artifacts.
Nigeria has been pushing to recover thousands of Benin bronzes looted by British forces in 1897. Many remain in European museums, but efforts to bring them home have faced setbacks. In 2023, the National Commission for Museums and Monuments, NCMM, had said the University of Cambridge's Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology put on hold plans to return more than 100 artifacts after the government decree. However, NCMM Director General Olubile Holloway says it is now a matter of time before an agreement would be reached with Cambridge University for the artifacts' return, adding that it's about restoring dignity and not just museum displays.
The return of these objects is not just about displaying them in the museums or taking care of them. It's about the dignity of our people and undoing the injustice of 1897. What that means is that even if we did not have a single museum, we would still be in our right to demand for our objects back.
He adds that the NCMM will now handle conservation and repatriation efforts with the Oba's supports.
The Oba doesn't currently have the infrastructure to care for these objects. He currently doesn't have the museum professionals. He doesn't have the conservators. He doesn't have the gallery attendants. So the NCMM, being the legitimate agency mandated by the government to administer antiquities, is the logical partner. And that is where the management agreement between the Oba and the NCMM comes in. The Oba has given us his blessing that the NCMM now has the legitimate right to display, to conserve, and to pursue repatriation of these objects. So there's no ambiguity.
Nigeria continues negotiations with institutions like Cambridge University for the return of artifacts. Holloway says the process takes time, but insists the bronzes belong in Nigeria.
A British businessman has been found dead in Kenya, nearly a week after he was reported missing during a business trip. Campbell Scott was last seen on February the 17th in Nairobi. The 58-year-old body was discovered 5 days later in Makongo Forest, approximately 60 miles southeast of the capital. Local authorities report that his hands and feet were bound, and initial investigations suggest he was strangled. 2 suspects, a taxi driver and a nightclub waiter, have been arrested in connection with his death. The UK Foreign Office is assisting Scott's family and collaborating with local authorities. 17 critically endangered mountain bongos have been returned to Kenya from the United States in a major conservation effort. The rare antelopes, originally taken from Kenya in the 1960s, arrived in Nairobi as part of a long-term plan to restore their population.
Kenya has taken a significant step in wildlife conservation, receiving 17 mountain bongos from a Florida-based conservation centre. The antelopes, transported in crates and airlifted to Nairobi, are third-generation descendants of bongos once taken from Kenya. With their numbers dwindling to fewer than 100, the Kenya Wildlife Service aims to revive their population.
We are looking at having the mountain bongo population growing back into this country. In about 2050, we are expecting that we shall be having at least minimum of 750 individuals of the mountain bongo back in this country. We are bringing back the biodiversity or the species that are critically endangered that had been taken out. The number 2, we are looking at creating jobs to the local community members.
The mountain bongo's return marks a major milestone in Kenya's conservation efforts. With continued commitment, officials hope to see these rare antelopes thrive once again in their natural habitat.
That's all we have today in African News. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.